My people, this one that just happened in Ogwashi-Uku, Delta State, has shaken the whole community. The headline alone tells the story, Fulani Bandits pay with their lives in Ogwashi-Uku as locals strike fearlessly. Now, let's break down exactly what went on, because this is not just another story. It's one that shows how far people are willing to go when they've had enough. Before we continue, please take 1 second, click the like button and subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any updates like this again. So, from what locals are saying, the whole thing started after weeks of tension. People in Ogwashi-Uku had been complaining about strange movements around the nearby forest areas. Some farmers couldn't even go to their farms again because they were scared. There were reports that some unknown men had been entering the area at night, moving around quietly, and people suspected they were part of a group involved in kidnapping. You know, when a community starts noticing things like that, fear begins to grow. But this time, the locals decided they were not going to stay quiet anymore. They had already reported to security agents, but the complaints kept piling up. People were being warned not to go out late, and even those who used to pass through the bush paths started avoiding them completely. The pressure became too much, and then came the breaking point. A young man was reportedly taken on his way back from the farm. That was when the whole community said, enough is enough. They called a meeting. Elders, youth leaders, even some vigilante members were all there. According to eyewitness accounts, everyone agreed that this time they would face the issue head-on. They decided to organize themselves and watch the roads closely. They believed those causing the trouble were hiding somewhere close, possibly in the forest around Otulu area near Ogwashi-Uku. So, one night, around midnight, some locals noticed suspicious movement in the forest path. They saw torchlights flashing deep in the bush, and immediately they sent signals to the vigilante team. The team gathered quietly, carrying their local weapons and torches, and decided to move in carefully. They didn't want to make noise that would alert the intruders. They went in groups, using shortcuts they knew well. And then the moment came. Around the early hours of the morning, the suspected bandits were spotted near an abandoned farm settlement. They tried to run when they realized they had been surrounded, but the locals blocked every exit route. From all reports, it was a very tense encounter. Some people said there were gunshots. Others said the locals managed to overpower them with courage and strategy. In the end, some of the suspects reportedly lost their lives right there, and the rest fled into the forest. Please, if you're watching right now, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It helps this channel grow, so we can keep bringing you updates like this directly as they happen. After the encounter, the entire community gathered at the scene. It was an emotional sight, relief mixed with sadness. Relief because the people finally felt they could breathe again. Sadness because everyone knew that violence, even when it's for protection, leaves deep scars. But the truth is, these villagers were tired of living in fear. They wanted peace, and they felt this was the only way to get it. Local leaders immediately reached out to the police and the army to come and take control of the situation. Security officials reportedly arrived later in the day to ensure calm was restored. They took away the bodies of the attackers and promised to increase patrol around the community to prevent any form of retaliation. Now, what's making this story even more interesting is how united the people were. Usually, in situations like this, some will say, let's wait for government. But this time, the entire community acted as one. Even women came out to provide support. Some were giving water and food to the vigilantes who were on duty all night. They saw it as defending their home, their land, and their families. There's something powerful about that kind of unity. When people decide to protect their own with courage and discipline, it sends a strong message. But at the same time, the leaders are warning everyone not to take laws into their own hands recklessly. They're reminding people that while community defense is good, it must be done with care so that innocent people are not harmed in the process. Now, from what I've gathered through reports and what locals are saying, this wasn't the first time something like this almost happened. For weeks before this clash, there had been quiet attempts by unknown groups to kidnap travelers along the Ogwashi-Uku road. Some people were lucky to escape, others had close calls. So this latest confrontation might have been building up for some time, and that's why many are now calling on the Delta State government to take stronger action. They want more patrol vehicles, more police presence, and better communication with the people in rural areas. Some residents even said the government should consider setting up a permanent security post around the forest area where these criminals often hide. But you know what's really touching about this whole story? It's that sense of courage that came from ordinary villagers people who had no fancy equipment, no heavy weapons, just determination and unity. They believed that standing together was better than living in fear separately. And that's exactly what happened. Now, after the news broke, social media went on fire. People from different parts of Nigeria started sharing their opinions. Some praised the locals, saying they did what the government couldn't do. Others warned that such actions could lead to revenge attacks if not handled properly. But generally, many Nigerians said this was a clear sign that citizens are losing patience with insecurity in rural areas. If you've been following the news across Nigeria, you'll notice similar stories, communities taking their safety seriously, forming vigilante groups, and standing up against kidnappers and armed gangs. From the north to the south, it's becoming more common because people are tired of living in fear. But make no mistake, security experts are still warning that this can be risky. They're urging government to immediately take control before things get out of hand. Because when civilians start fighting criminals without proper coordination, there can be confusion and mistakes. Still, in Ogwashi-Uku's case, many are saying this bold step might discourage future attacks. Please, as we continue this gist, remember to click that like button if you haven't already and subscribe for more updates like this one. Every time you engage, it helps push this video to more people who need to hear what's going on in Nigeria today. Now, let's talk about the emotional side of this incident, because beyond the headlines, there are real human stories here. Imagine the fear families felt in those days. Before this happened, parents afraid to send their children to school, farmers scared to enter their own lands. The moment people realized the threat had been neutralized, the relief across Ogwashi-Uku was huge. Some residents even said it felt like a heavy load had been lifted off their shoulders. In some videos circulating online, you could see people thanking God for safety and praying that peace would return permanently. Local churches held Thanksgiving prayers the following Sunday, and traditional rulers reportedly promised to work with security forces to maintain peace. But people are still cautious. They know that sometimes after such incidents, there can be revenge attempts from surviving members of these gangs. That's why the local vigilantes are still maintaining watch around the forest routes. At night, they keep patrols moving, making sure nobody sneaks in. Community elders are also advising the youths not to go around boasting about the incident. They said it's better to remain calm, vigilant, and focus on rebuilding trust and peace. The message everywhere is, never again shall we live in fear. At this point, the government's response will be very important. If they provide support, reinforce the area with police and surveillance, this could serve as a success story, a case where locals stood up and government backed them to make peace permanent. And I must say, stories like this remind us that security is not just the duty of the police alone. It's everyone's concern. When communities are united, criminals find it harder to succeed. Now, I'll pause here for a moment. The story continues with how the aftermath played out, what happened to the captured suspects, how the investigation went, and what lessons other communities are learning from Ogwashi-Uku's courage.